You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Proudly brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Centre, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Check out their up-to-date job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics. Stay up to date with all of our Sabres coverage. And thank you to those today watching us on the video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. Stay up to date with all of the video content gets released here on the network. And thank you to those today listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broad are with you to discuss the Sabres' last stretch of games here. We've also got our fan polls. We've got our Swords Up, Swords Down segment that we're going to be debuting today, as well as our prospect showcase that we're going to be doing once a month, where we look at one Buffalo Sabres prospect. This month, we're going to hone in on OHL player Ethan Miedema from the Kingston Frontenacs, Sabres' fourth rounder in 2023. As well, we're going to look at an interesting lineup change for the Sabres, kind of switching up the forward group there. And we'll get Austin's thoughts on what's been going on with the team lately, because obviously, Austin, you were away on the last show. We had Joe Yurden on from Noted Hockey, which was great, and we're going to obviously have him as a resource on this show. But I'll just kind of open it up the floor to you, Austin. What have you thought of the Sabres' last stretch of games here, and what have you thought of the way that they've kind of looked through the first 10 or so games?
So aside from the debacle over in Europe, I mean, all things considered, passable isn't the right word. I feel like that's kind of downplaying it. Not bad. Like, I think they're through the first 10 games, there's been a lot to kind of, obviously there's some concerns, which we'll get into later, obviously, but all in all, the things that you want to see, you're seeing. The top line is producing. Their 5-on-5 scoring is, again, amongst the best in the league, which is what you expect from this team because of the talent that they have. They're playing relatively well. Obviously, there's the clunkers here and there, you know, the Columbus Blue Jackets game and things like that. But even the last game against Florida, I know it was 5-2, but all in all, they were in that game, but they just made dumb mistakes and shot themselves in the foot, which, depending on your outlook, can either be more frustrating or less frustrating. So I don't know how to feel. Like, the 4-5-1 record feels about right, but when you take away whatever the hell happened over in Europe, a lot to build off of. And when you look, we'll look forward again later in the show, but the month of November, all in all, isn't that bad for the Sabres. So like there's a little stretch here where if they can keep playing like this, they can set themselves up in a pretty solid spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, like, there's obviously been some disappointments, which we'll get into with our fan poll here shortly. But when you look at the player stats and the guys that are leading the way, Tage Thompson has really, found his stride as of late with 12 points. Alex Tugg, JJ Peterka, Owen Power. You're still wondering how they're going to go about. I guess when we talk about the line changes, they've made some changes up there on the forward group to try to get some guys going. What have you thought of the way that Luukkonen and Levi have played? Luukkonen's played a bulk of the starts here. Can't really blame them for that Florida game. I mean, they got down 2-0. They came back to make it 2-2. Florida made it 3-2, and then they got one more and then sealed it. So, like, it's just a hard team to come back on. And the stats don't look necessarily the greatest for Luukkonen right now. He had won his last two starts before that Florida game.
See, I'm the opposite of you. I can and will blame him for that Florida game. There were a lot of other mistakes that led to that, but to me, that third and fourth goal have to be stopped. You're a starting goalie in the NHL. There's a little bit of traffic in front of you. Those are shots that weren't tipped. They beat you clean. I think he has been okay this season, but he has not been. He's closer to the bad Luukkonen that we saw 2 years ago right now than he was to the Luukkonen that we saw last year. And even Levi, it's not like Levi's playing much better either.
No.
So to me, aside from their special teams and, some other concerns there, goaltending is near the top of the list for me because, you can't be allowing 4 goals on 20 shots or 24 shots. I don't care. I know a lot of them. I'm not going to fault them for the first 2 goals, the 2-on-1 prime scoring chance, the power play, Dahlin clearly left the net, front of the net there, left the guy wide open. But at some point, if you want to be, a number 1 goalie in this league, he made those saves last year. He's not making them right now this year. Obviously, long term, I'm still not worried about him. I think he'll rebound just fine. We've seen him do it before. But right now, I do think he definitely has some room for improvement and should be held accountable for, both of them should be held accountable for the fact that they're a decent chunk of why the Sabres record is 4-5-1.
What do you think about the defensive side? Obviously, they had 2 defensemen behind the net on one of those goals against Florida, which can never happen when you have 2 defensemen behind the net. And again, I'll agree with you there that the third and fourth goal definitely could have been stopped, and Luukkonen has made those saves in the past. But I have more of an issue with the way that they're giving up odd man rushes and the way they're turning the puck over and creating those chances going the other way. Yeah, you want your goaltender to make the saves, but I feel like they've been very sloppy at times already through the first 10 games or so, and that's why they have such a mediocre record right now.
Maybe there's a few interesting things, right? 5-on-5 expected goals against per 60, they're right in the middle of the pack. So are they elite defensively? No, but they are not near the bottom defensively whatsoever. On the penalty kill, they're actually not giving up that many quality chances on the penalty kill. The goalies are getting beat clean. So that's where I kind of lean into the goalies need to be a little bit better because I think the defense has been fine. The way this lineup is built, you're not going to have elite defensive numbers. You're not going to have elite defensive numbers when you have Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, Bowen Byram, and Henry Jokiharju in your top 4. You want those guys to push the pace offensively. So I think relatively where they are defensively is okay. I just think the goalies need to start making those key saves here and there, and you'll definitely start to see a shift in the Sabres results. So, yeah, can the defense improve? Always. But it's way better than what it was last year. It's way better than what it was a couple of years ago. I just think right now it seems that their forwards are, except for a couple forwards, which we'll get into later, their big guys are clicking on all cylinders. Their fourth line is doing its job. Their third line has been relatively solid. McLeod's been a breath of fresh air. So it just feels like, they're making dumb mental mistakes. And yeah, they are giving up the odd man rush here and there, but they're definitely not giving it up the rate that they were a couple of years ago and at the rate that they were last year. So I'm not blaming it all on the goalies, not remotely close to that, but I do think the goalies are underperforming right now. And that is, aside from the power play, to me, that is one of the biggest concerns with this team through 10 games.
I think they have missed that big save in a game where if they have a lapse or something like that, the goalie bails them out with that save of the game that can really keep them in it. I don't think Luukkonen has played up, like you said, to his expectation. I don't think he's been bad, but he hasn't come up with that elite goaltender save where you need the guy to bail you out once or twice there. It happened in the Florida game on that third and fourth goal when Buffalo had kind of come back and tried to be in that game. Power play didn't do them any favors either, but yeah, I agree with you. With Levi and Luukkonen, there hasn't been where I can look back on the first stretch of games and be like, that save they made in that game was the reason they won.
Yeah, no, that's kind of been their biggest issue, right? And I think when you really look at the numbers at 5-on-5, Luukkonen has relatively been okay. He's been good, not great. But what have we said for the last 2 years? You give this team good, not great goaltending, and they should be fine. So I think it'll kind of sort itself out as the season progresses. But I do think, a couple of games so far this year, the Columbus game, Levi was atrocious. The Penguins game, I think Luukkonen could have made a couple saves here and there. Even the Red Wings and the Panthers game, the Red Wings game, Luukkonen didn't play his greatest. It shouldn't have been a 5-3 game. It should have been a lot bigger of a blowout than that. So the goalies are doing okay, but they are still letting those bad teams kind of hang around. And like we saw it with Florida, when you play that way with a good team, you don't get to hang around. They blow you out. That's kind of what happened. So again, there are other concerns. I'm not going to blame it all on the goalies, but the goaltending is something that I'm watching here going forward, especially as the schedule starts to lighten up, because if the goalies kind of can't start to show their consistency again, it could spell some trouble for this team going forward.
Yeah, 3.31 goals against and an 890 save percentage is not what we expect from Luukkonen. And Levi, 3.79 goals against and an 874 save percentage. That's just not going to get it done if you want to be a playoff team.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Okay, so with that, we'll get into our first fan poll of the day here, and make sure to give us a follow at Sabres Semantics if you guys want to stay in on the conversation when we post polls for every one of our shows here. So, Austin, we'll kick it off here with which Sabres player has been the most disappointing so far, Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn. Jack Quinn won this poll with 76.9%. Cozens was 23.1%. Both of them have been very underwhelming from what we had expected of them coming into this season and trying to have bounce-back seasons. Pretty down years for both of them. Quinn was injured a lot last year, and Cozens just did not replicate what he did the season prior. What have you thought of obviously both of them, but Cozens takes the winner-loser of this poll?
Yeah, I think, again, Quinn is clearly the most disappointing forward on this team right now. I don't think there's really many people that can argue against it. I just threw Cozens in there because, one, I think Cozens has become a little bit, not controversial, but like it seems to me that there's a lot of people that just strongly dislike Dylan Cozens, which I'm not in that camp. Don't get me wrong, he needs to be better. But with Jack Quinn, it's just, he came back from the injuries last year and didn't look out of place. But this year, it looks like his processing is way slower. His explosiveness is just gone. He's not making smart decisions with the puck. It's just, I don't know if it's mental. I don't know if he's nagging something. I don't know what it is. But with Jack Quinn, it's just like, he's not finding ways to contribute. At least with Dylan Cozens, he's throwing the body around. He's blocking shots like he was in that Florida game. He's still getting chances. He's just not finishing. So I think, obviously, out of the two right now, Cozens has the better outlook. With Jack Quinn, it's bad. And as someone who has been one of his biggest supporters since the Sabres drafted him, this isn't good at all, because the Sabres are going to need him to produce. He's capable of producing. Like he's played really well throughout his NHL career so far when he's been healthy. So I'm hoping this is just a blip in the radar. Not exactly sure what they want to try and do with him. Obviously, they're going to try and put him on a different line here going forward, which we'll talk about later. But he's got to find a way to get it going. And Dylan Cozens has to find a way to start producing, because right now, if you can get those two going, it provides a nice boost to this team that will really help them going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, we thought Jack Quinn was going to be, that second line right winger that was going to be productive for them. They obviously didn't go out and get a top six forward in the offseason because they believed in the guys that they had. Benson's hurt right now. Quinn has underperformed. So, those are the guys that you're expecting to step up. Jack Quinn, he's averaging 15 minutes and 11 seconds of ice time. Cozens, 18 minutes and 15 seconds. Both of them have been so underwhelming that, I don't even know if you can really pick either of them. Cozens has 3 points. Quinn has 2 points.
Yep.
Quinn's played one less game than Cozens, but both of them being first-round picks and being guys that are part of this core that Kevin Adams talks about all the time about how excited he is. Well, this is the year that they're expected to make the playoffs, and Lindy Ruff hasn't been able to unlock those guys yet. So I don't know where either of them go from here. Joe Yerdon was on the show. He said Cozens has to turn it around because he's too talented not to. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that yet through the first 10 games. But hopefully, through the next 72, we'll see some sort of better results, because both of them are not helping the Sabres cause right now.
No, not at all. And the fact that, again, that they were together through their first, 9 games, because like you said, Quinn only played 9, but the fact that they were together for every single game and it wasn't working was a big hindrance. So going forward, hopefully this, the split will help something. But again, we'll get into it later. If that can make some magic here, that's really good for the Sabres going forward, because their big guys are producing. The McLeods, the Greenways, and the Zukers are having an impact, and their fourth line is basically doing its job for better or for worse. However you feel about that fourth line, they're at least doing their job. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're playing with speed. They're playing with physicality. So it's on those two. And he's hurt, and I still think he's really good. But it's if you can get a Kulich or a Benson to kind of get going with them, it would make a big difference. But realistically, yeah, it's those two. It's 22 and it's 24. If those two don't get going, it's going to be hard for this team. If these two do get going while the rest of the team kind of plays the way that they've been playing, this team's going to be good. So it's finding a way to unlock them. Hopefully Lindy Ruff will be able to do that, and we don't have to have this conversation again on this pod, because if this is an overarching theme for them this year, probably going to be looking at year 14.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't get that middle six going, it's not going to be like the big guys can score, but if you don't have depth,
it's not even the middle six though. It's just the second line, right? Because the McLeod, the Greenway, and the Zukers, they're producing for at a solid rate for a third line.
Yeah. Well, now they're kind of split up, so it's
Yeah, we'll see how that goes going forward. But like, if you told me Jordan Greenway had 4 points in his first 9 games and McLeod had 4 goals in his first 10 games, like, yeah, you take that 10 times out of 10.
No, I guess I meant like moving forward with the new line combinations. But yeah, no, the Greenway's been good.
Like you said, it's 22 and it's 24. If they don't get going, you and I will be having this conversation all year, and we'll be like, well, that's why they missed the playoffs.
Poll 2. Which Sabres player has been the biggest positive so far? Tage Thompson, JJ Peterka, Owen Power, Alex Tuch. JJ Peterka wins this poll 42.9%. Second was Tage Thompson at 35.7%. And Owen Power was 21.4%. Alex Tuch 0%. So JJ Peterka comes off that Peterka comes off the concussion that he suffered overseas against New Jersey, and he's been good since he's been back. Obviously, they've got him up on that top line, switching him to the left wing spot. What have you thought of Peterka, and do you agree with the poll, or do you think differently?
It's hard to say I disagree with the poll, because all 4 of those guys have been really good. I don't agree with the poll, but with Peterka in general, it's it's what we expected or what we wanted, right? Playing with speed, meshing with with Tage and with Tuch. He's scoring at even strength. Like, he's doing everything that we wanted to see out of him. So is that entire top line. I do think, and some fans will get mad at me for saying this, I think the biggest positive has either been Tage or Power. Nothing against Peterka and Tuch. Tuch getting 0% to me is also wild, because Alex Tuch, compared to last year, has been night and day. Another guy that you and I highlighted before the season started. But I'll go with Owen Power, simply for the fact that Dahlin took a little bit of time to finally get back to the Rasmus Dahlin that we expect him to be. I know he had that injury during training camp and things. I don't think he was necessarily healthy to start the season, but Owen Power has 8 points through 10 games. That's really, really, I know, he's had a lot of multi-point games there, but Owen Power has been really good. He's been really poised. He's been really confident with the puck. Has there been mistakes? Yes. Are Sabres fans going to highlight the mistakes for Owen Power? Yes, it seems like that's what this fan base does, and I get it. It's been 13 years, so when the good players make a mistake, you just harp on them. But Owen Power has been really good. Dahlin is now starting to elevate himself back to being that number 1 defenseman, but I think through the first 7 or 8 games, Owen Power was kind of carrying this defense group. The underlying numbers might not be the greatest, but one thing with Owen Power that was true last year that is true this year is, at 5-on-5, when he's on the ice, the Sabres score a hell of a lot more than they give up. And now he's producing at nearly a point per game pace through 10 games. I don't think Owen Power's ever produced at this high of a rate. So obviously I'm not expecting him to be a 75-point guy this year. But if he continues to play the way he's been playing, gets the trust of Lindy Ruff, and still produces points, like, to me, he's been the biggest bright spot. Tage, Peterka, Tuch, again, is Tage producing? Yes, for me personally, what did I say earlier? I have not been worried about Tage Thompson. Last year, to me, was an outlier year for them. He wasn't healthy. So seeing Tage produce the way that he's been producing, to me, is more of he's healthy again. This is what should be happening. So to me, that's why I just go with Power, because he carried the team for a while defensively, and his point production is way higher than we've seen it in his career so far.
And he's averaging almost 21 minutes of ice time a night, too. So, I mean, for a guy that was basically the whipping boy for Sabres Twitter last year with the way that he was playing, I think that we've got to be pretty pleasantly surprised with the way that Owen Power's taken a step this year. As you mentioned, 8 points in the 10 games, scored 2 goals. Peterka's got 8 points in 8 games, so he's at a point per game. You mentioned Tuch. He's got 12 points in the 10 games, 7 goals in that stretch, and Tuch, 9 goals in 10 games. So, like, those are the 4 guys that are technically the 4 guys that are leading the way with points right now for the Sabres. Zucker's got 7. Dahlin's got 6. A little bit slower of a start for his expectation. But I agree. I think if Owen Power, we're not expecting him to be a top point producer this year, but if he can score 40 to 50 points, I think that would be a great year for Owen Power. Like, And again, it's not just about points; it's about him playing solid defensively. And Lindy Ruff wants to kind of unlock that from a guy like Owen Bauer, who's a first overall pick in the NHL draft. And again, is not going to be that top end point producer, but can be a solid two-way defenseman on that second pair. So I'm pleased with the way that Powers played. But again, I was not expecting Peterka to lead that poll either.
No, yeah, that was honestly, I expected it to be Thompson or Peterka. So those top two, but I not even that he led it, just that he led it by as much as he did. I thought most people would have said Tage, because I remember people saying last year Tage Thompson isn't as good as we thought he was. Turns out he wasn't healthy last year, guys.
Turns out he had a wrist injury.
Yeah.
Which kind of affects your ability to take one-timers, but who am I? Anyways, third poll. Which Sabres player has been the biggest surprise so far? Jordan Greenway, Ryan McLeod, Connor Clifton, and Jason Zucker. So basically their entire third line that we spoke about earlier. Ryan McLeod wins this poll at 71.4%, and then it was a tie between Zucker and Greenway at 14.3%. Clifton was 0.
Yeah, it's fair.
So Ryan McLeod, pleasantly surprised. I asked Lindy Ruff about him in the morning skate the other day, and he said that they're a little bit or pleasantly surprised with his offensive ability, what he's been able to do so far. 4 goals in the 10 games as a third line center coming over from Edmonton. We know about his speed and what he's able to do taking key faceoffs, but for him to have 5 points right now, half point a game, Ryan McLeod has definitely been a bright spot there. Yeah,
McLeod has definitely been a bright spot, and it's kind of, again, only 10 games, but the same thing that I said, at the preview episode was if 71 and Bo and Byram, number 4, if 71 and 4 are really good players, it should help carry the Sabres this year. And McLeod has been as advertised, scoring at a little bit, the 4 goals is nice, but he's been a key face-off guy. He's been smart defensively. He uses his speed. He's helping get guys open. To me, honestly, Jason Zucker has been the most pleasant surprise, mostly because 7 points in 10 games is fantastic. You're not expecting him to produce at that rate at all. But just he has been able to put himself in spots to generate key scoring opportunities. I know the power play has been absolutely abysmal, but the few times that I've seen the power play look good, he's also got, both of their goals on the power play.
Which he tipped that one in against Florida.
Yeah. But even before that, before he was able to score that first one, anytime the power play kind of looked good, it was with Zucker in that bumper spot. He was able to, get open and get some shots off. They weren't going in. So he's kind of been a bright spot on their power play, in my opinion. And really anyone on that third line deserves this award, because that third line of McLeod, Zucker, and Greenway just found a way to mesh together instantly, and they were able to produce. They were able to play with each other and just kind of embody the way that a third line should play. And then they produced at a higher rate than I expected. So any one of those guys getting it makes sense. I wanted to highlight Zucker there because I've been very pleasantly surprised with the way that he has played. And I know when he got signed, everyone was like, what the heck, $5 million for Jason Zucker? Very, very early, but the early returns on that, he looks like he fits in nicely here.
Yeah, he's been good, and he's been versatile, right? Like Benson's been out of the lineup, Peterka's been out of the lineup. He's been able to go up and down the lines there, and right now he's getting top power play minutes with guys like Benson out of the lineup. So I don't expect him to kind of stay there all year, but it's been nice to be able to have him kind of pick it up, which we know that he's done over his career. But at this point where he is, later into his career as more of a third line player, at least he's got that versatility where he can go up and do a decent job in that top 6. And like you said, he's got their 2 power play goals right now. So I guess that is even more than what you would expect from him going into the season, leading the team in that category. But I think, as you mentioned, the whole third line has just been a breath of fresh air. We're going to see some lineup changes, though, with that. But I agree with Ryan McLeod. For me, it'd be Ryan McLeod 1A and Zucker 1B. I know Greenway's been good, and even Clifton not getting any love on this poll. But all those guys, we had huge question marks about the third line going into the season about were they going to produce. And right now, they're definitely something that has been one of the bright spots, despite them not having the most positive results right now overall.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, the third line has probably been – the first line has been great for them, but I think the third line has kind of been like, oh, wow, this is really nice. Like, I didn't expect seeing this. Clifton makes sense. I think he's been a lot better this year than he was last year, but I still think Clifton is very prone to every time I want to start liking him and saying he's playing well, he makes a boneheaded decision. Like he took a stupid penalty last game right after making a somewhat decent play. So it's just with Clifton, it's still kind of trying to erase last year. Essentially, he's playing a lot better, in my opinion, than last year, but he's still prone to those stupid mistakes and those stupid boneheaded penalties. But when you have a player like that, kind of makes sense there. So yeah, it's the first and third line on the forward group have been obviously the most two consistent lines for the Sabres, and they deserve a lot of credit for, I know 4-5-1 is nothing to be proud of, but when you take away the fact that they started 0-3, it's pretty cool that they were able to go on a 4-2-1 stretch, because last year Sabres, or what we're usually accustomed to, is that probably wouldn't have happened in years past. So they still have some issues to iron out here, but overall, relatively satisfied, I guess, is a way to put with how to feel about this team right now.
Relatively, yeah. We'll leave it at that. Thank you to everybody contributing to our fan polls. Again, make sure to give us a follow at Sabres Semantics to stay up to date with all of our fan polls for each of our episodes. Move on to our second part of today's show, and that is our newest segment, Swords Up, Swords Down, and that's going to be brought to you by Global Pet Foods. Their pets are undeniably part of the family in all 4 of their great Niagara region locations. Austin and I going to give one thing we've liked about the Sabres, one thing that has been disappointing for us. That's why it's called Swords Up, Swords Down. Kind of like thumbs up, thumbs down, but with a little bit of Sabres twist on that. So, Austin, start us off here. Go wherever direction you want.
You want to start positive? Let's start positive. So I'll go sword up, and my sword up will be, I want to touch on something that we haven't been able to touch on yet. So my sword up will be the 4th line. Beck Mallenstein, Sam Lafferty, and Peyton Krebs for the most part, because obviously Obey Kubel has only played 2 games. Not the best looking numbers for a 4th line, but when you look at what particularly Mallenstein and Krebs have been able to do, I've been relatively satisfied. Mallenstein does play with a ton of speed, and he does try to hit anything that moves. He's kind of been as advertised. Not exactly, again, what you're thrilled about paying a 2nd round pick for, but he's bought in. He's played his role well, and he's been relatively effective. Lafferty has been very inconsistent as a 4th liner, but he's been pretty versatile there. So I'll give those 4 guys my sword up, because Lindy Ruff told us how they were going to play, and they're playing exactly as advertised. So heavy defensive usage there, but they're able to bring the speed and the physicality, something that a lot of Sabres fans have wanted to see from this team. And I think it's rubbed off. You're seeing guys like Tuck, Thompson, Peterka, Cousins has had that physical edge throughout his career, but you're seeing it more this year. You're seeing Tage and them finish checks. So I'll give them the arrow up, give them a little bit of shine, because we kind of highlighted everything else. And do you want to do your sword up, or do you want me to do my sword down first?
You can go ahead.
Sword down, I've already talked about it. I think you can kind of guess on where I'm leaning with this. It's the goal. It's the goaltending. To me, goaltending just hasn't been good enough. Both goalies with over 3 goals against per game. Both goalies with a sub 900 save percentage in their limited sample size. Just simply not good enough. I know both goalies are better than what they've shown. They need to start showing it, or the season is going to be. It's going to be really hard to recover from this. If Luukkonen and Levi can kind of get more to the average goaltending that I know they can provide, I think it'll really do a lot for this team. So right now they are my sword down.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. Like, again, they haven't been terrible, but they haven't been at the level what this team needs them to be if they're going to be able to steal them some games, and they have not been at that level. And I think we've kind of now expect that from Luukkonen after the season that he had last year of like, okay, he's no longer like a fringe starter. He's the starting goaltender, and he needs to come up with those big saves that just like those other top-end goaltenders like the Ottingers and the Vasilevskis, the Shesterkins, the Sorokins of the league. Like, you're not expecting him to be at those guys' level, but you're expecting him to have performances that win you games like those other goaltenders do.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has, don't get me wrong. Like, he played really well in the Dallas game. He's played really well in a couple other games here and there. Even in Levi's 1 win, he played really well. But it's just, it's the consistency. Start being more consistent. It'll be a lot easier for yourself and for the team going forward, because, through 10 games, I think I've seen enough from this team to say this team is good enough. This team is good enough to make a push for the playoffs. It's just now, on every level, you need to find that consistency, goaltenders included.
I'm going to start with swords down. I'll end with a positive.
Okay.
You know me.
All right.
I'm always the eternal optimist here. Anyways, so my swords down is the power play. 32nd in the league, 6.9%. It, as you mentioned, I'll use your word earlier in the show, it has been absolutely abysmal. Jason Zucker has their only 2 power play goals of the season. That's not going to get it done. Obviously, they've missed guys like, Peterka missed that little bit. at the beginning of the year. Benson's been out, but they still have enough guys that you expect them to do better on the power play. This team should not have the 32nd ranked power play. I know Lindy Ruff tried to get some movement in that Florida game, moving Tage from the bumper spot and moving some guys around, trying to have some movement there, but it has just not been good enough. And if you're going to have a 32nd ranked power play, you're not going to make the playoffs. It's simple as that. I know the penalty kill doesn't look great. They're 23rd, but I mean, they have been doing some good things lately, but when your power play is less than 7%, I mean, I don't think I really need to go any more detail into that. I think that's basically, just not acceptable.
Yeah, the only thing, like you said, the only thing I'll add to that is, I don't know if it's ironic, whether it's just extremely negative outlook, but the guy running the power play this year is someone that most people have tabbed as the guy that they wanted to succeed Lindy Ruff. So
That's
nothing
true.
against Seth Appert. I think he'll be able to figure it out. I've seen some bright spots here and there. The strategy on the power play at least isn't as redundant as it was last year, where it's just, hey, smash the puck to Tage Thompson and let him hammer one-timers. I think this year their struggles on the power play more than anything are they can't enter the zone properly on the power play. Like when they do get it set up, they are able to generate a couple of chances here and there. Just they struggle to get the zone and get everything set up. So I'm confident, maybe not confident, but I'm hopeful that they will be able to figure it out. But I guess the only bright spot is at least it's different struggles than last year. But I don't know about you. I would take 15 Tage Thompson one-timers at this point.
Yeah, I probably would too. And if that gets them back up to 12%, I'd still take it, but again, it has to just be a lot better all around with the power play. So I'll end it with a positive, and I'm going to say Jason Zucker, just because of the way that he's been a pleasant surprise so far. Coming over from Nashville, he's been around a little bit now, Minnesota, Phoenix, Pittsburgh. Yep. But the fact that he's been able to be versatile up and down that lineup, he's got their only 2 power play goals of the year. Whether he's going to stay on the top power play unit or not is something that we'll have to wait and see. I don't expect it all year, but if he keeps being the one to contribute and being that guy as the net front presence, as you mentioned, in the bumper spot, being able to tip in some pucks, they definitely need him. And he's showing that he's a good veteran in this league now. And 7 points in 10 games. Not bad for a guy you signed for a 1-year deal. I know it was $5 million, but again, it didn't matter if they signed him for $10 million for 1 year. Yeah. Just a 1-year contract. He's been good. Tabbed as a third-line player, but again, versatile guy, moved up and down, and that's what you kind of expected, and thought that was a nice under-the-radar pickup by Kevin Adams. Now, whether Kevin Adams expected him to be a top 6 forward or not, I don't know if he believes that or not, but they still are missing that person. Whether Benson's going to be that when he comes back, Quinn's supposed to be that, Peterka, Kulich is, in and out right now. But for me, Jason Zucker's been a very pleasant surprise so far.
Yeah, 100% been a very pleasant surprise. He's been that versatile guy that we kind of expected him to be. I think he's capable of being a spot top 6. Obviously don't want him potentially as a top 6 all year long, but he's done well through 10 games. So I have to give a little bit of credit for that. Hopefully he can keep this up. Again, am I expecting him to be a 65-point getter this year? No. But if he can be in that 40, 45-point range, that would be an absolutely phenomenal pickup by Adams, who don't want to give him too much credit because he still has yet to do that move for that top 6 guy that everyone's been saying. And no matter how many times Elliot Friedman throws out on 32 Thoughts that Kevin Adams is trying to add somebody, I'm not going to believe it until it happens.
Zucker only has 12 shots on net and a 16.7 shooting percentage. So for a guy that doesn't take many shots, he's not doing too bad. But
not bad at all.
So that's it for Swords Up, Swords Down, and that's going to end it for our first segment. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and do our prospect showcase, take a look at the upcoming games and the big news today with the shakeup on the forward line. So stay right here. We'll be right back on Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought by the Niagara Employment Help Centre. We'll be back after this. The great guys over at Hockeystickman are sponsoring this video. If you play hockey but are sick of paying upwards of $400 for top-end sticks, check these guys out. There's seriously no better place to shop. The guys are fun, easy, and offer a stress-free experience from start to finish. They get pro stock sticks from major junior teams right up to the NHL teams and sell them for half the price that the same stick would sell for at a retail store. To further support their mission of saving hockey families money, they offer closeout options, which entail taking last year's retail models and blowing them out for less than wholesale wholesale prices. It's literally the best prices on the internet for their sticks. And the best sticks of all may be their Pro Blackout series, which provide a top-end stick with no graphics and literally less than half the price of a branded top-end retail model. It's always been their best-selling stick despite super cool pro stock options. It's a no-brainer to shop with these guys, and trust me, they are beauties. Head over to hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm and get $15 off your first order. That's hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm to get an additional $15 off your first order when you sign up on their website. Check out our friends at Hockeystickman.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Centre, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, and Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Centre, helping people find work since 1983.
This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario. Pets bring immense joy to our homes, becoming an integral part of our families. But this living, loving experience often requires a little extra care and attention. That's where Global Pet Foods comes in, with owners and staff ready to support you every step of the way. Check out one of their locations today: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Proud to sponsor the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara Ice Dogs.
Celebrating a birthday, wedding, graduation, or just watching the big game, Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano is there to satisfy your pizza needs. Serving handmade Italian pizzas created with the freshest, top-quality ingredients, loaded subs, and their famous chicken wings. Platinum Award recipients of Community Votes Niagara for Best Pizza and Wings in all of the Niagara region 3 years running. Open 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week from their brand new location at 7156 Drummond Road in Niagara Falls. All payment options accepted to fit your convenience. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery. Place your order today at 905-374-4400 or check out their online menu for the best quality pizza and wing combos you'll find in Niagara at carmine'spizzeria.ca. You've tried the rest, why not try the best? Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, proudly serving the Niagara community since 2013.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hey, hey, here we go, it's hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go, the boys in blue, white and gold. Hey, hey, here we go, make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all, let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand raising our hands, saying let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo. We will be here till the end, saying let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics episode. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broad are back with you, going over the Buffalo Sabres' most recent stretch of games. We also talked about our Swords Up, Swords Down segment, our fan polls, and everything like that in the first segment today. And in the second part of today's show, we're going to talk about our prospect showcase, which we're going to do once a month here on the show. Look at the upcoming games and the big news regarding the lineup change. Thank you to everybody watching us today on the video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And thank you to everybody that's tuned in on demand on your favorite on-demand audio platform. By the time this episode comes out, Halloween will be come and gone, but Austin and I are not wearing any costumes today, unfortunately, on the show. With that said, Austin, we're going to start off with our prospect showcase, and that is brought to you by the Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road in Niagara since 2012 in honor of the late William Robert Hunter. Our first one is going to be a person that I was able to catch up with covering the Ontario Hockey League here, Ethan Miedema, forward for the Kingston Frontenacs, a guy that was a 2023 fourth-round selection of the Kingston Frontenacs. And we're going to hear from him shortly. Austin, quick initial thoughts on again, Miedema might end up being more of a Rochester type player, but what do you like from his game, from what you've scouted from Kingston?
So right off the bat, obviously the physical tools, right? Big body, plays a little bit with the power game, capable of getting to the front of the net, scoring. Has a little bit of that skill element to him, which is kind of becoming more common now with these bigger guys. I know it used to be kind of a unicorn thing, the power and skill blend, but it's basically becoming necessary for those bigger guys now. Like you said, more than likely, either a bottom six or a Rochester type of guy. But I do think he embodies kind of what the Sabres want under this Lindy Ruff system, right? Which is some speed, some physicality, and some ability to produce some offense. Mostly intrigued here. A relatively similar start to what he had last year with the Frontenacs, but last year he really kind of fell off. Hoping this year he can keep fighting through it and stay consistent, because I do think he has the capability of being a solid player for the Kingston Frontenacs. He just needs to show that consistency, which unfortunately wasn't able to show last year. I'm not going to blame it fully on him. Kingston wasn't also the greatest team last year, so looking out him long term here. Keep playing the way that he's been playing, but also find a way to show that you can score consistently. Because when you're as old as he is, when you're a 19-year-old in the OHL, you should be producing at a pretty high rate. So it's nice to see him get off to the start that he's gotten off to. Just got to keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, Kingston had a coaching change in the middle of last season. They moved on from Luca Caputo and brought in Troy Mann, who has a more of a pro style. He coached with Belleville in the American Hockey League, and you can tell that they played a lot better structurally under Troy Mann, and maybe trying to get him into more of a pro style. Again, maybe not the biggest point producing guy with his big frame. Again, he's 6'4". You can tell when he cuts down that right wing, which I asked him about in the interview, trying to kind of shadow the puck and use his long reach to his advantage. He's got 12 points in 13 games, 6 goals, 6 assists, 36 shots on net, and 0.92 points per game so far with Kingston. As you mentioned, a down year points-wise for him. But you expect now in his 4th OHL season for him to produce at a point-per-game level, which there's 68 games in the OHL season. So if he's around 75, 80 points, I think that would be a solid season for him with Kingston. Again, a team that has higher expectations this year as maybe like a middle-of-the-pack playoff team. Again, with the coaching change in there, it just seemed like they had to really do a lot of things to get that team into better habits the second half of the year, and they played a lot better structurally under Troy Mann in that sense. So good start for Ethan Miedema. We're going to hear from him in a second, but definitely a guy that looks like he has potential to really be a pro hockey player at least the American Hockey League level, just based off of his size and his skating alone.
Yeah, you said it there 100%. It's obviously hard to go through a coaching change in the middle of the season, especially in junior hockey where every coach has a different style. Kingston, like you said, not the greatest team last year. They're obviously have more ambitious goals this year. Different in the OHL when really only 2 teams in each conference don't make the playoffs. So even if you're not a good team, you can still make the playoffs. So this year they have a little bit more ambitious goals, and they're off to a relatively good start. And Miedema has to be a big part of their scoring depth up front. They have some really good players, but they're going to need players like Miedema to be the X factor that help put them over the top if they want to make some noise.
So we'll get to that player interview with Ethan Miedema, brought to you by Cully's Original Sports Bar. Whether you're gearing up for the game or celebrating a big win, Cully's is the place to be before and after every single game. Just a short walk from the Meridian Center. Cully's, it happens here. Here's my recent catch-up with Ethan Miedema when the Kingston Frontenacs were in Niagara to play against the Niagara Ice Dogs, on his outlook on the season and his experience away at the Sabres Prospect Challenge. Well, Ethan, quite the start for you. 5 goals your last 6 games, up to 9 points. I know it took you about double the games last year to get up to this many goals. So what's been working for you so far early in the season here?
Honestly, I think a little bit with my line mates. Kind of, starting to build some chemistry with Gundana, like a good pickup we had this summer from Owen Sound. Played some good years there, and obviously was a decently high pick to Montreal. And then Gage Hayes too, just a guy who works so hard, and I think he opened some room up for me. Even just the goal last night, like brings 2 or 3 guys to him, and then kind of gives me a beautiful pass, and kind of just sets me up on a platter. So a little bit, I give them lots of credit, but also as you get older, the league, you start to get a little bit more comfortable and more experience. So I think a mix of those 2 things.
4th year in the league now. You've been here quite a while now. You're one of the more veteran guys on the team now. What's your kind of mindset maybe different than maybe your first couple of years that you've really found that works for you as you've experienced now what the grind is of an OHL season?
Yeah, a few different things. I mean, in my first year, I was on a loaded Windsor team with guys who are playing the NHL right now, like Wyatt Johnson, Will Cooley. even Matt Maggio, who's playing in the American League, some other pro guys. But now it's just kind of, looking at them as, vets or fourth-year or third-year guys and kind of trying to translate that to, a new team. But regardless of the team, I think it's just, you got to bring it with whoever you're with. And, like I said, as you get older, you get more experienced, and,
I know it's been a little bit now, but you've been able to experience 2 Sabres prospect challenges. You've been able to start training camp with that team over in Buffalo. Just how has that whole experience been for you the last couple years? What have you been able to take from those and bring it to your game here with 2 coaches there, with Seth Appert and now with Michael Leone this year?
Yeah, I've learned quite a bit from them. I mean, I'm only there for, a couple weeks at a time, if that, with development camp and main camp. But you soak in everything you can. You try and be a sponge while you're there, and it's crucial because you go away for a couple weeks while the rest of the team stays here and practices, and you try and bring back not necessarily better habits, but just kind of new things that you can add on to yours, and learning from other guys. I mean, it sounds cliche, but as you kind of grow up and get older in leagues, you kind of start to learn and grab onto new things, and just try and bring those back to your club.
And now that you're kind of looking ahead to, taking another step in your OHL career and hopefully going to pros in the next couple of years, what's something that you're really working on? I notice when you're cutting down that left wing or that right wing, you're able to kind of shield the puck with your long reach. What's something that you're really working on as, to try to take that next level in your game here?
Yeah, you kind of said it bang on. I mean, being a bigger player, you got to be able to protect pucks along the walls, whether it's D zone, O zone, behind the net. Anywhere on the ice. I think that's something, me and the development staff, with the Sabres have tried to, pinpoint and kind of work on. And that's definitely one thing. There's obviously a lot of things I got to work on before getting to pro, but that's one thing that, they've been really helpful with, and just sending me clips, or even just sometimes the development guys will help me on the ice. And just picking up, pucks on the wall. And like you said it bang on. So, yeah.
A lot of different coaches between development camp and then back here with Kingston. What's Troy Mann brought to this group? I know he took over about midway through the last year. What's he really brought, and what's he, asked of you as a coach to take that next step in your game?
Yeah, him and the development staff in Buffalo seem to be on the same page with everything they're kind of wanting me to work on. So I think just kind of trusting that and trusting the process, especially with the Sabres guys. And back to Troy, he's he's got a really good track record with games coached in the American League, and obviously that's where I want to be eventually. So kind of just, it's the same thing. You got a pro coach, and he's coming back from pro over the last, he's been there 9-10 years at least, I think. And so just trying to take in everything he says.
And lastly, you talked about bringing in guys like Cedric and Don, things like that. What's your outlook for this Kingston team this year with the new coaching staff, and where do you think you guys, potential-wise?
Yeah, I don't want to set any, a number on anything, but I have really high expectations, and for myself and also, the team. And I think it's, there's some special players and a good mix, and it's a close team. Coming back to the fact that, Troy came in and he's played so many games in the American League. Just kind of you put all that together, and we're not setting a place or a placement or points we want in the standings or anything, but I don't see why we're not top team in the East.
There was Ethan Miedema. Austin, what did you think of what the Kingston Frontenacs number 15 had to say?
Good goals to set for himself and the team for Kingston. Not really sure if they're going to be a top team in the East, but good to have those ambitious goals. He's been off to a good start. Nice to hear him say that, just to be a sponge and to try and bring all those things back to the OHL camp when he gets back there. So seems like a really good guy. Seems like he's saying all the right things, and he's off to a relatively solid start. Is he ever going to be that elite point producing player? No, but he is going to be that guy that can play with physicality, produce offense when needed to, and get the puck to where it needs to go. So really hoping that he has a really strong finish to this OHL season, because I do think he's a really fun player to watch, and he does kind of embody some of the things that Kevin Adams and Lindy Ruff have really talked about, how they want their guys to play.
Yeah, and just with him, the convenience of covering the OHL, I'm sure I'll talk to him before the end of the year, and we'll have him as one of our prospects again, maybe later in the year, and see how he's kind of progressing there. I did like that he mentioned that the development teams with Buffalo and Kingston are on the same page, and that's a good thing, right? Like, he's talked about using his size to his advantage more often this season, and you like to see that the Buffalo side of things and Kingston, they're on the same page and they wanted to work on the same thing, so that he's not getting two different messaging from when he's away at a prospect camp, then comes back to Kingston. Like they're all on the same page, and that's good for the player's development as a whole.
Yeah. Always a a key thing. And I think, not necessarily, it seems obvious, right? You want the NHL guys and the OHL guys to be on the same page with how they're developing prospects. But in reality, it doesn't always happen. We kind of saw that and kind of see that with some higher profile players. So it is good that they're on the same page. It's good that he doesn't have any mixed messaging coming to him, because that can always be a lot and pretty tough for some younger players to deal with. So good to see that everybody's on the right page there. And hopefully it ends up working out well for him, and he makes a push here for a role with the Sabres, because, you always root for a guy that you can interview and you get the privilege of covering and getting an interview him. But also you always root for those guys who get drafted in the later rounds to make something of their NHL career, because it's always cool if you get a 4th round pick that can become a regular contributor in any facet of the game.
Yeah, and I like how he said that he hopes to be in the American League one day, and again, he has the aspirations of being a pro hockey player and paying his dues and working his way up. And shout out to him. He has a foundation called Miedema's Mission, and he's raised money for cancer awareness and things like that. So the Kingston Frontenacs actually were able to donate a large check. So he's doing a lot of neat stuff off the ice with his Miedema's Mission initiative as well. So good guy off the ice, good guy on the ice, and those are the guys you root for. So wishing Ethan Miedema all the best with the Kingston Frontenacs this year, and we'll see when he gets to the Sabres development camp or training camp, what if he's able to kind of make that jump to the American Hockey League next season, or if he goes back for his overage year. We'll have to see. But again, first of our prospect showcase, and hope we have more of them going forward on the show. It's going to kind of be like a monthly thing where we won't be able to necessarily talk to all the prospects like we were with Miedema, but Austin and I will kind of hone in on one prospect that we thought has done really well during the season. So with that said, Austin, before we get out of here, we got to talk about the big news here with the lineup changes and for the upcoming games here against the Islanders and the Red Wings coming up this weekend. And from our friend here, Joe Yurden from Noted Hockey, here is the new lineup for the Buffalo Sabres at practice this morning, or yesterday if you're listening to this on Friday. J.J. Peterka, Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck up front on the top line. Second line of Jordan Greenway, Ryan McLeod, Dylan Cousins. Third line, Jason Zucker, Peyton Krebs, Jack Quinn. And then fourth line of Obe Kubel, Lafferty, and Beck Malmsteen, with Kulich swapping in on the fourth line. Austin, definitely a shakeup there in that middle six. Your initial reactions to it and how you think it's going to go going forward here?
Initial reaction, necessary. Cousins and Quinn had to be split up. Like I said, those two were the two most struggling forwards, and they have been stapled to each other through the start of the season. So it's kind of just been basically making that second line a black hole. Cousins moving to wing, we'll see. I don't hate it. I think it might just be a good way to kind of make it easier on him mentally. He won't have nearly as much responsibility on the ice as a winger. He can kind of just focus on getting back to playing the way that he plays. McLeod and Greenway have been really good together, so I think throwing Cousins with that line could really, bring some nice results. The third line, Zucker, Krebs, Quinn. Very intrigued with that. I think it could be really good or really bad. If Quinn figures it out, I think this line could be really, really good. We already talked about how Zucker has been a really nice bright spot. Krebs, 3 points in 9 games. He's playing, he's doing Peyton Krebs things. Not bad, not great. Quinn has been virtually nothing. So if he can figure it out and that line meshes, it bodes really well. If he can't figure that out, you're now relying on Peyton Krebs and Jason Zucker to carry a line, which I don't know if they're capable of. We're going to find out.
And Zach Benson's on retroactive IR right now, So where does he kind of fit into this? Obviously, the lineup's going to change again when he's back healthy, but I think it provides a statement from Lindy Ruff saying that we know there's things that we have to fix and there's guys that we have to get going here. And again, I keep pulling it back up on the video version there, but like Greenway and McLeod on the second line, do you think that they might be able to untap what Dylan Cousins needs? And as you mentioned, moving him to the wing, maybe a little bit less responsibility, get him going a little bit more offensively, get him some confidence, putting in some points, and being able to just get back to the Dylan Cousins that we all expect from him as that number 2 center. I don't expect him to be on the wing all year, but I like that they're giving him a little bit of a change here, trying to get him going, try to get Jack Quinn going with putting him with other guys that have been good. Again, it's unfortunate that you have to split up the line that was very good with Greenway, Zucker, and McLeod, but I assume at some point those guys will go back together. But at the meantime, it's trying to give those other guys a boost that have been a little bit disappointing in that sense, and we'll see where Benson kind of fits into it. But I like it. I like that they didn't touch the top line because they've been producing well. And as you mentioned, the fourth line's been producing well as well. Kulich kind of swapping in there. We'll see if he goes back to Rochester anytime soon. But again, that middle six really mixing it up, I think it's what needed to be done right now.
Yeah, 100%. It needed to be done. Ruff even said so himself. So there's nothing to think about now, but hopefully it works, right? We're gonna find out tomorrow, and we're gonna find out Saturday.
Yep. And then looking ahead to the upcoming games, Austin, what are you thinking from the schedule here as we kind of wrap up the show? They've got the Islanders, they've got Detroit. They've got some other games coming up here as I pull it up here on the video version. They've got Ottawa and New York Rangers, Calgary, and Montreal are all going to be teams that they're going to play by the time we record next on the show here. So they're going to have 7 games here against some teams. They've got four home games out of the 6. What are you hoping to see from the next couple of weeks from this team? And, hopefully they get Zach Benson back healthy. I know you want to see more from the goaltending, and we'll see where this new look forward lineup goes. The defense has been relatively untouched in that sense, but what are you expecting here in the next little stretch?
Well, I expect you got to win the next 2, right? The Islanders have not been good. Detroit has not been good. If you consider yourself a legitimate playoff team, you either got to bare minimum get 3 out of the next 4 points. Rangers are obviously a really good team, so obviously a little bit tougher there. But when it comes to the Montreals, the Calgarys, and things like that, like those are games you've got to find a way to win. At worst, you got to find a way to get to overtime. So I think if the goaltending does improve and if this kind of balances out and unlocks Quinn and Cousins, we're going to see that a lot more regularly here. You said there's going to be 7 games by the time we talk next, but really the next 4 or 5 game stretch, I'm really looking for, a 3-1-1 type of stretch again from the Sabres here. If they can kind of get that, they can give themselves some confidence, get themselves on a roll. I think November is a month in this schedule this year where they can kind of take advantage of it and really position themselves well for the rest of the year. So big month for the Sabres coming up.
Final thoughts on how close the Atlantic has kind of been so far. We saw Pierre LeBrun put that tweet out the other day about how 1 through 8 there has been pretty close.
Yeah, it's the Panthers are still the Panthers, right? Like, even though they haven't had like the greatest start in the world, they're still really good. The Bruins, the Leafs, and the Lightning are all looking like, so far, it's very early, so far that maybe they're taking a step back. The Sabres and the Sens are kind of right there. The Sens are finally getting really good goaltending from Allmark. That we know their offense is good enough. That's kind of where I go with the Sabres need that good goaltending. You can kind of put them in Ottawa in that next level. Montreal and Detroit, I'm unsure of. They have some really high ups. They have some really low lows. We know Buffalo is also going to have that too. But I feel like the Sens and the Sabres have the potential to kind of be that next tier in the Atlantic this year. Obviously, Montreal is going to get there eventually. They have a lot of talented young players. But this feels like a year for the Sabres where if you set yourself up well, you can take advantage of the Atlantic. Maybe a number 3 seed is or top 3 seed is in play here if you sort out the issues that you have.
Yeah, and I mean, they have to pick up some points here in the next 7 games. As you mentioned, it's a little bit easier of a stretch here in November, but we'll kind of see, where this team goes and if this forward shakeup kind of gets guys going, and if the goaltending can get back to being at the level that we expect from Luukkonen and Levi. Again, not been bad, but definitely haven't been winning them games. But it's definitely going to be an interesting stretch here, and we'll see by the time we come back and record again, Austin, if this team is going to be, again, right now in the standings where they are right now, as at the time of recording this, in 10th place in the Eastern Conference, or if they're going to be up there fighting for a playoff spot again. They keep talking about playoffs as the expectation, and it's a must or else it's a failure. We'll see what Lindy Ruff and if Seth Apper can get that power play turned around. That's definitely a big thing that needs to happen. Zach Benson getting healthy as well, getting back into the lineup, and there's a lot of questions that need answers right now, and we don't have the answers to them right now at the time of recording this episode.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, this month, this next little stretch will really kind of let us know who this team is. So really hope they can take advantage of it because it'll make everything better for us for the rest of the year.
Hopefully. That's going to wrap up another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Centre, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Thank you to everybody listening to us today on your favorite on-demand audio platform and those watching on a video version on YouTube. So for Austin Broad, my name is Brandon Caputo. Happy Halloween. We'll talk to you again very soon.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.